Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. It's me, John, and Shannon. As always, I'm joined by Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
Bit jet lag, but not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Yeah, you've been flying around everywhere, haven't you? Been a busy few hours for you.
Quick trip to Dubai for 15 hours and back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know many people who go to Dubai for a day, but hey,
Crazy
oh.
world, crazy world.
Yeah, exactly. A comprehensive victory for West Indies in the third T20. What did you make of the game so far?
Um, Interesting to see that Shai Hope is opening the batting. I wonder who's been calling for that for some time now.
I'm not sure.
But I think that obviously, as I said, like that strikes, I guess, the best balance of both worlds in terms of Shai is not necessarily a six hitter, so he gets to attack in the power play with the fielding restrictions on,
Yeah,
which gets the team off to a good start, gets him into a good position, and you allow someone like a Evan Lewis to get into his game. Obviously,
yeah,
you could have seen this entire tour. He looked a bit short of cricket, but as he was able to get through that power play without the pressure of having to attack, then he got into his own, being a very good hitter throughout the middle phases of the game once he got in. So
yeah.
then he was able to accelerate and unfortunately got out for 90, 91. I think as well, you look at Casey Carty, he's just having the time of his life right now.
Yeah.
This tour has been obviously a huge breakout tour for him internationally, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it goes now with him being an all-format player because I think that CPL last year he played quite a few good knocks as well.
Yeah.
But obviously being in a very strong Trinidad team, you're not necessarily guaranteed to bat in any one position.
No.
So that may have been a good thing for him in the sense that he's now got that flexibility, that adaptability to, I guess, come in and play different situations, different roles.
Yeah.
And coming in today, probably most likely would have been carded to bat at number three. But given the start and the situation, West Indies trying to take advantage of the start. Obviously, the Rovmans and the Hetmeyers came before him, but he still got an opportunity and finished off the innings well. So I think from a batting standpoint, those three things are the things that sort of stood out. And then from a bowling standpoint,
Yeah.
again, the start wasn't great. Lots of boundaries, both sides of the wicket, full
Yeah.
shot. Um, so I think we need to come up with a better plan. I think there needs to be a bit more dynamism as well. People know that we're going to open with Akil Hussain and Asima now.
Yeah.
I think we need to sort of find some other options just as backup plans.
Yeah.
Even if you want to go the spinner and pacer, that's fine.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sammy's tenure as captain, he'd have had Samuel Badre as his
Yeah.
opening bowler, along with either Ravi Rampal or whatever the case is. But times have obviously changed, and so you've got to move with the times. You can't necessarily stick with, um, I guess, sort of what worked in your playing days to your coaching days as well.
Yeah.
Just having a few more options, I think, is probably the main thing that needs to be identified now because we're not necessarily getting off to the best starts with the ball, and that's putting us under pressure to a try and restrict where you should be looking to take wickets
Yeah.
and then take wickets. So it's it's
Yeah.
it's sort of not allowing the team to have that level of comfort in the bowling side of things.
Yeah. You know, when we were speaking throughout the game, and obviously the start that Shea and Evan Lewis had, we spoke about that, and then I said about I felt like they lost that momentum a little bit, and then you said that extending in people rather than going down the attacking route. What did you mean exactly by that statement?
So, for example, obviously they went the attacking route first with sending Rovman and Hetmeyer at three and four to try
Yeah,
and capitalize and maximize on the score.
you agreed with that way, the way they went. Yeah,
100% because of the start that we had, you had
yeah,
to try and maximize and get as big a score as possible. Also, keeping in mind that we did draw the series in Ireland, the 50 over
yeah,
series. We didn't win that. So you can't take them for granted. You can't take them lightly. I'm happy in a sense that obviously Casey got an opportunity because debut match, you still wanted to see what he could offer, as opposed to, probably going the road of just sending all the big hitters and
Yeah,
the likes of him and Roston getting backed up to the end of the innings as would normally be the case, and
yeah,
sort of provided, I guess, that stability and that anchoring, and the other guys came and played around him. So,
yeah,
I mean, as I said, that showed a bit of flexibility because obviously today we're missing a Sherfane and Rutherford as well. That adds a bit more dynamism and obviously the utility in him being a left-hander, so that gives you
yeah.
variety in
Right. Yeah,
your left hand, right hand um, batting combinations. But then I was a bit surprised to see, for example, a Jason Holder come before a Romario Shepherd, who is, I mean, that's what he does.
well, they're trying to hone in
So,
that role, aren't they? As that finishes, that's what they're maybe trying to
but
work on, maybe.
but when you look at it, it was probably only 5 to 6 overs to go anyway. So I don't think that you're trying to hold him for too many. I mean, I guess if you want to say that you have him specifically for the last 3 overs, but why not go for the kill? Because you've got enough backup at the end anyway,
Yeah,
and
of
you've got
course.
literally everyone in that team that can bat from 1 to 11. So,
Yeah, of
in
course.
my opinion, you should have gone hard again, having Casey as the anchor from the other end.
Yeah,
And then if anything happens, then you've got guys that can still hit, but can still be responsible as well in
yeah,
the Jasons, the Aki Husseins, the Roston
of
Chases,
course.
etc., etc.
Oh yeah, the Roston was definitely a lad
Exactly,
that I didn't think was going to play today. Put it that way.
exactly, exactly.
But then from a bowling performance wise, again, I felt as though he was going through the motions a little bit, really. I felt that they did finish 20-30 short with the bat. Again, I appreciate that it's a bit of a strange statement to make when your team posts 256, but I still feel that there was that period of time where they lost it. And then from a bowling perspective, just felt that they just felt like it felt very last game of a series from a bowling perspective.
Yeah, just as you said, it felt very much like a last game. Like guys want to get back home now, but
Yeah,
the tour's over. It's not been a successful tour. Um, There's not much to play for, but obviously there is a lot to play for because it's a one game decides the series winner.
yeah,
So I mean, at the end of the day, every international match is important, and having been not the greatest of tours, especially from a bowling standpoint, you'd
yeah,
think that it's another opportunity for the bowling unit to go out and try and
yeah,
gel together, try and get the unit to work cohesively and figure out some things. So obviously a bit disappointed with that, but to come out with a win, irrespective of that, shows that obviously there's a lot more in this unit. It's just figuring out ways to try and utilize and maximize
yeah.
each person's skill because everyone's been pretty expensive on this tour, and it's interesting because you'd find generally most players would tell you that you get better pitches outside of the Caribbean than in the Caribbean in terms of you can play through the line, you can
Yeah.
play with shots a bit freely, better outfields. So batting and bowling, well, batting in particular becomes a lot easier because you can trust the pitch a bit more, but bowling becomes a bit tricky a bit because balls that you may get away with in the Caribbean that may stop in the pitch
Yeah.
or lag or keep low, that doesn't happen outside the Caribbean. So it calls for a lot more accuracy and consistency in terms of execution of skills.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, again, a nice brief sort of overview of that sort of T20. Well, I would say series. It was a shame that it was one game, really,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
just the way that it is in Northern Ireland or the UK, should I say, in the summer. But another point that me and you've been speaking about, and I obviously wanted to see you get your opinion on this, really, was is the idea of playing for West Indies, is it losing its credibility, do you feel?
I think
Is that the right term I've used there, do you think?
I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure if it's the right term, but I think everyone will get the gist of what you're saying. But I think that societal changes, culturally, obviously, the youth of today are a lot different of even the youth of my era or the
Yeah.
youth of the eras before me. So what people want out of life and varying opportunities or ways to get that now sorts of makes me believe that playing for the West Indies for these younger guys isn't necessarily as much as a North Star as it was for me, for example. I mean, it
Hmm.
could be a situation where now playing for the West Indies just gives these guys an opportunity or a shop window
Yeah.
into getting onto or getting seen internationally
Yeah.
to be picked up by domestic franchises,
Yeah.
um, which is sad because you look at all the other cricketing nations around the world, everyone still wants to go back and represent their nation and do well for their nation. Um, Whereas it seems as though that's not necessarily the case for the West Indies anymore. And, I was thinking the whole week, if the West Indies board had the financial ability or the financial backing to pay these guys what they'd make for franchise or domestic um, tournaments,
Yeah.
would they then still want to play as many T20 tournaments as opposed to representing the West Indies more? And
Hmm.
something like that should give you a definitive answer, but there's no definitive answer coming to my mind, which tells me that it obviously the financial aspect of
Yeah.
it is a huge part of it because ultimately a cricketer's career is very short, and each person has, I guess, different responsibilities and different things they want to do themselves and
Yeah.
how they want to set their families up or whatever, because their financial, I mean, their earning potential may not be as great, and so they want to maximize this aspect of their lives, knowing that they've got probably the next 35, 45 years to live.
Yeah.
But do guys want to play for the West Indies as much? Is it just a financial thing, or is it more so a West Indies cricket system thing now? Is it a Caribbean cultural thing? Is it a societal thing where people have shifted away from having that West Indian pride? That's something that I'd really like to know.
I don't necessarily think this is just something West Indies based. I think what you mentioned at the very start there about the difference in eras and stuff like that. I think that there is. I still think there's these players out there who maybe doesn't mean as much to represent the country as it once did, and maybe
Mm,
that's because of it may feel it's a lot easier to represent your country than it once was
mm,
due to and then people so that the feeling of getting that cap maybe is gone. Not gone, but maybe it feels a little bit less. I don't know. I don't know. And it's an interesting point that you make, and it's something that's a shame because ultimately, when you look at the we'll lead on now, obviously, to speaking about the Test Championship, and you look at that as a pinnacle game in Test cricket. That's where it's all about. You look at the emotion that you see from South Africa for winning the game, and you look at the emotion for Australia losing the game. That's what it means to represent your country, and South Africa winning that after all the years of going through what they went. That's what it feels like for an emotion of representing your country.
and not only that, you listen to Virat Kohli after 18 years of trying with RCB and finally getting to the mountaintop of winning the IPL. He said it feels as about maybe 5 levels lower than playing Test cricket.
Yeah,
You listen to Aidan Markram, who scored a century in the World Test Championship final, speaking and saying that it does Test cricket, no T20 franchise league win could compare to what he's felt in winning the World Test Championship.
yeah,
And I think that it was important that South Africa won the World Test Championship for many reasons, because obviously the start of this year was filled with talk about creating a two-tiered system
yes,
where
yeah,
South Africa would be a second-tiered team. Um, Now South Africa, a second-tiered team, and people can say all they want about the path that South Africa had to get through to get to the finals. But ultimately, if you're saying Australia, the Englands, the Indias had a harder pathway, and they're the better teams, well, then South Africa, regardless of pathway, coming up against a better team, should not have been able to do what they did. And it was the second highest fourth inning run chase at
Yeah.
Lords. So I mean, it wasn't necessarily an easy task, regardless of how much conditions improved. Um, Whatever the case is, the opposition is still the opposition. Australia are still serial winners,
Yeah.
know how to win, compete down to the very last ball. And I think that it's a great statement for Test cricket as to why the ICC, not only, in my opinion, shouldn't create a two-tiered system, but they should make it a more balanced playing field for
Yeah.
all across the board where, all right, you have the big three, and you're saying that cricket isn't financially viable. Um, a few months ago, I raised something with you in terms of creating a structure where the Test Championship is over a 3-year period
Yeah.
as opposed to a 2-year period. And one of either India, Australia, or England tours every one of the smaller nations. So those three teams will go, however you split it, but they'll go on they'll have 4 tours,
Yeah.
whether it is two at home, two away against all of the smaller nations. So that will cover all of the smaller nations, and that will help in their financial viability in terms of hosting and continuing to play
Yeah.
cricket, test cricket, and making test cricket feasible and viable. Because, as you said, you look at the emotions that this brought up from South Africans. I mean, you look at Lords, they were all singing, they
Oh,
were
it was fab-
jumping, they
it
were
was
dancing in
absolutely
the stands.
fantastic. It
It
really
was
was.
if the game was played in Cape Town or Johannesburg or some city in South Africa. And I'm sure when they get back to South Africa, this might actually be better for South Africa than them winning a T20 or 50 over World Cup. For the mere fact that if you look at South Africa's test calendar for the rest of the, I don't think they play another test
They'll play a home
for
test
the
for a
rest.
year.
Yeah, they don't play a home test for another year,
Phenomenal. Yeah.
which is absurd. And then you look at someone like a Kagiso Rabada, who is already an all-time great, the best strike rate ever in the history of Test cricket, and we're talking about everyone that's ever bowled
Yeah.
a cricket ball. 300 odd Test wickets, and he's had limited opportunities compared to some of the other guys that are currently greats of the game as well. So imagine if South Africa had consistent Test cricket, because if you're not playing another home test for a year, the captain Temba Bavuma may never play another test at home in front of his home fans, having now lifted the World
Yeah.
Test Championship mace and taken it home to celebrate with your country. You know, so these are things that obviously go through my mind in terms of why Test cricket is the best form of the game, the ultimate
Pinnacle.
form of the game, the pinnacle of the game, and it
Yeah.
should be protected and kept to that high standard.
Yeah.
Because for me, regardless of guys wanting to play franchise cricket, whatever, I think that's a great thing that's happened to the game. It's
Yeah.
brought lots of money, lots of opportunities for not just top guys that play Test or ODIs or T20 internationals. Lots of guys now have opportunities to make a career from cricket, feed their families, play cricket for an extended period of time, and not have to go and look second, third jobs in the winter or
No.
on the weekend, whatever the case is. But we need to keep Test cricket alive, because you see what a good Test match series does to the entire world, not just to those two countries involved in it.
No, all eyes were on Lords, and that's what you want when you talk about World Test Championship and as competitive as it was, and this in the way it went in Australia's favour, then back in South Africa's favour, and even on the last day when they got the wicket early, everyone was thinking, oh yeah, it's 65 they need, and it was like with that attack, you don't know what's going to happen, how South Africa reacts. Everything, it was brilliant, and it highlighted exactly what you say, why Test cricket is the pinnacle and why it needs to be played more and more.
100%.
And
So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how the ICC go forth from here now, because, as I said, a tier two team, and if they do go that route, it's not even going to be a situation where you have a winner of Division Two play the winner of Division One for the World Test Championship. It will probably be top two teams
well, get
from
promoted, don't they?
Division One that play, and it would probably be more so a promotion and relegation thing, where
It's,
you see a Division Two team is just beaten Australia, that is probably hands down the best team in the world. I mean, if it were a 3 match or 5 match series, I think everyone would expect that Australia would have rebounded and won the series. But a one-off test match is just like an NFL game, Super Bowl. it's the best team on the day, and South Africa were the best team on those 4 days or over the course of this match. So
Yeah, exactly.
kudos to them and congratulations for winning their first major men's trophy.
Yeah, definitely. It was just a brilliant test match from start to finish, and Steve Smith at Lords was like a shoe-in. He was always going to get runs, and then Rabada's both. His bowling was superb. I thought the way that Mitchell Stark again was brilliant from an Australian perspective. All three quicks really were fantastic for Australia. But then Aidan Markram's century at the end was just absolutely superb, and the resilience he shown, and the way he batted was was brilliant. And then the way that Bavuma batted with an injury as
Torn
well.
hamstring.
Exactly, it was fantastic. And then one thing we spoke about it a lot actually during this test series when it comes, sorry, during the T20 series about intent. And one thing that I noticed after I can't remember which I was in the second in T or whether it was in day four, the way that the intent that South Africa had, not from a boundary perspective, the way that they looked to rotate the strike and the way that they were so aggressive in terms of the mindset of taking singles and Aidan Markham especially. And I think that was a real key part of the game there where they showed that intent when normally the pressure would be back on them with the bowling attack that Australia had. And I thought, you know what, it was brilliant. And as a cricket geek, I just absolutely loved watching that test match. It was superb.
Indeed, it was a great advert for Test cricket. And I mean, Test cricket, to be fair, over the past year has had some very good games and some very good series. So
Yeah.
I think Test cricket's actually in one of the best spaces it's been in for a long time. Um, which made me again think about West Indies cricket holistically because I think from a one-day batting unit, we've got a good batting unit. From a test match
Yeah.
bowling unit, we've got a good bowling unit.
Yeah.
Um, and the T20 team is more so potential. It's not really consistency, but there's potential to be very dangerous. So
Yeah.
it's interesting for me to see what happens with West Indies cricket in the next sort of few years, because it could be a situation where we start to go the route of a New Zealand, even an Australia for some sense of it, where you have more so a core group of players that play most formats as opposed to all these specialists. Because I think Sammy had said that there's no white and red ball players. We don't have enough players, and we really don't. We need to start creating holistic players that can benefit West Indies as opposed to white and red ball players.
And I always remember when we first started doing these podcasts, me and you, 12 months ago, you and it was one of the first episodes we did, you turned around to me and you said, a good cricketer is a good
It's good
cricketer.
cricket.
Yeah,
Yep,
period. Whether they play 20 overs, 50 overs, or test cricket, a good cricketer is a good cricketer. And it's always stood with me at that point, and it can be more prominent now with the situation that
yep,
you discussed then.
100%.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much anyway, Kai, for having a good catch up with that and a good three topics as always. Um, I know that obviously we spoke as well. We're going to do a really good preview of the Test series between the West Indies and Australia, which will cover some really, really good points that we've mentioned off the back of the World Test Championship as well, and some talking points there, and obviously the 11 that West Indies go with. So I'm really looking forward to sort of debriefing with you that very soon. But yeah, hopefully you can catch up with some sleep, get back in UK times, and we'll see you all soon. But yeah, continue to keep commenting and sharing and liking. We do really appreciate it. I know I keep going on at the end of these podcasts about it, but me and Karen really do appreciate the views that we're getting and the likes and the comments. It's really, really, really appreciated.
100%. And don't forget to subscribe as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Cheers, Guy.
Cheers.